Hello and welcome to Solo Power Vampiric Reaper. So you've seen the introduction and you've seen what this build is good for and what this build is not so hot for. So really this is for PvE, for dungeons, for guild missions, for low-level fractals, for all this kind of thing. It's not really suitable for raids, for World v World or PvP, although you may find it as a good basis to start with, and you make the amendments that you need in order to make it viable. But what I'm really aiming for here is players who have reached level 80 and they've been very happy with their build, or perhaps they're not so satisfied with their build, whichever it is, and they want something that's going to be super powerful, really high damage, but easy to use with a rotation that you can't really get wrong. In fact, if you made it up, it would still do fantastic damage and keep you alive as well, because that's why this is a solo build. Not every one of my choices will be optimal for DPS, but that'll be when I've sacrificed that. It's to keep you alive, because this is, after all, a solo build. Okay, let's start with the weapons and the armor. So all the armor pieces are Berserker. Now when we say Berserker, we mean power, precision and ferocity. Power, the damage you're doing; precision, the accuracy of your hits; and ferocity, how hard you're hitting. That's what Berserker is. It's these three together, and every piece of your armor wants to be exactly that. It wants to be Berserker. So do all your trinkets want to be Berserker as well. That is the power build for all of these things. When it comes to infusions, what you'll want to add is power or precision or a mixture of both. I know I haven't got one in there, but that is what you'll be looking for, is power or precision or a mixture of both. Let's talk about the rune. Now, ordinarily, the meta for the rune would be, for a power build, would be Rune of the Scholar. And nothing wrong with Rune of the Scholar. Feel free to go with that if you like. I've gone for Rune of the Ogre for two reasons. A, I don't always like to be the same as everyone else, but B, I actually really like the Rune of the Ogre. And because your build is going to be a solo power build, you are free to change the rune for whatever you like that suits your way of playing, your style of playing, the roles that you like to perform in. You are free to change the rune to what you want. I am aiming for a really high power build, so for that reason the difference between the Rune of the Ogre and Rune of the Scholar is very little. The first 5 points are exactly the same, so there's no difference between the Rune of the Ogre and the Rune of the Scholar on the first 5 points. It's the 6th point that the difference comes in. Now, with the Scholar, you get 5% damage extra if you are above 90% health. Now, in a group setting and in a team setting and in a Zerg and on a raid, there's a great chance that you are consistently above 90% health. So that 5% is almost a given, and that's great. If, however, as is this build, you are running solo, you enjoy running solo most of the time, it means that you'll very rarely, with a damage build, be able to keep your health above 90%, which means you will lose that 5% most of the time. What I like with Rune of the Ogre is that 4%, yes, it's 1% less, but that 4% is all the time. It doesn't matter if I swap weapons, it doesn't matter if I'm on my last couple of hundred health, it doesn't matter what conditions are on me or anything else, that 4% stays. Now, I do lose from the Scholars 125 ferocity, but you will see later in this build that I get plenty of ferocity in addition. Through the trait lines, I will not be missing that ferocity from the Scholars. Lastly, what I do get also with the Rune of the Ogre is this Rock Dog. You can only take my word for it, if you don't know already, that you'll be amazed at what this Rock Dog can do. He takes aggro superbly. He also is much stronger attack than you would give him credit for. He will take down any level 80 enemy, standard enemy, not champs and not veterans or elites, but any standard enemy on his own without you doing anything. The beauty of it is he doesn't die easy. He can take aggro. He can give you just that couple of seconds breather while the rest of your main skills are perhaps on a cooldown before you jump back in. It's a very useful, far from gimmicky. I find it great. The cooldown of 60 seconds might look long, but the cooldown starts the moment you summon him. So you will be very regularly, you will be rarely without a rock dog in your battles. Anyway, that's what I like, but please, if you want to go meta, revert back to the Rune of the Scholar, and if you want to try something else instead, then please do. Put a different rune in instead. You can always use the upgrade extractor to change or rescue your rune later on without destroying everything if you found you didn't like it in the end. Let's go to the weapons. I've got these the wrong way around. Your main one is going to be your greatsword. I've got also axe here, and I've got warhorn here. I like those very much as my secondary set. But what we're concentrating on here, and what your main force weapon will be, is the greatsword. Again, it wants to be Berserker's power, precision, ferocity, and your sigils. Sigil of Force is standard. You can't really do without it in a power build, okay? It's 5% damage, completely unconditional. You want that in either your main hand or your offhand, or one of the sigils in a two-handed weapon. Unfortunately, they do not stack, which means you cannot have two of them in one build. Otherwise, that is definitely the way we would go. If you tried to put another Sigil of Force into this weapon to make it two, or if you had a Sigil of Force in your main hand and a Sigil of Force in your offhand, you would find that they do not stack. You would only get one set of 5%, and you would lose the other 5%. So that's why we only use one Sigil of Force. So, the other sigil. Well, there's a whole variety that you could use, and really, your style of play or what you like to see happen should determine what sigil you want as your secondary sigil. I've gone for Sigil of the Night. I'll tell you why. First of all, there is a consistent 3% damage. So just like my main sigil gives me 5%, with Sigil of the Night you get 3% no matter what. It doesn't matter. It's not conditional on weapon swap, on a kill, on a critical hit, nothing. You will get an extra 3%. So I couldn't get the 10% from double Sigil of Forces because the game won't allow me. But I can get 8% as a standard, and I think that's pretty nice. With an additional 7% at night. Now, let me tell you, the day-night cycle in Guild Wars is not the same as real life. It switches over much, much faster than it does in real life. That means a couple of things. It could be a story session or a dungeon, and it can be long enough to switch into night without you realizing at all. Some of the missions you might go on are set at night, and you wouldn't really know until you enter them. All told, if you really wanted to look at it negatively, you would say, oh, I'm losing 7% during the day. You can look at it that way. That's not the way I choose to look at it. I choose to look at it like I've got 8% standard overall damage increase no matter what. But should it switch into night? Should I be out and it's nighttime? Should I start a mission and not realize it's going to go into... Should I be in a dungeon and outside it's gone into night? I've suddenly been boosted by another 7%. I think that's great. But please, switch that for whatever you choose. Again, in fusions, you want power and or precision. Okay, let's look at the build. So the three trait lines we want here are Reaper, Blood Magic, and Spite. Bearing in mind that we are going here for the solo power Vampiric Reaper. So let's start at the top. First, you've got the three skills that you can do nothing about. Shroud gives you might, deal more damage when you're downed, and gain might when you strike a foe below the threshold. You can't do anything about those if you choose this trait line, so let's not spend any time on them unless they impact something further down the line. I've started with Spiteful Talisman. Deal increased damage to foes with no boons. Most mobs are going to be without boons. Also, you notice that in my swap set I held an axe. Well, that means that those skills will be recharged 20% faster. It's good to have. Next, I've gone for Awaken the Pain. Might grants you more power and less condition damage. Okay, so normally it'd be 150 and 150, but with this trait, you go down to 100 condition damage, but up to 200 power. And this is a power build, not a condition damage build. So that's very suitable for us. And gain might, so that's any might, that will do that too. But you will also gain 5 seconds of might when you enter Shroud. Finally, close to death. When the enemy gets to 50% and below, your damage will increase 20%. Again, this is super helpful when you're running a solo build, okay? The enemies down to 50%, to know that you're going to be finishing them off quicker once they get to that level is very helpful. Okay, into blood magic. The 3 you can do nothing about is when you dodge, you grant this mark. This mark gives you a little bit of healing and also makes them bleed if they enter it. This one siphons health whenever you hit a foe. Okay, so whenever you hit a foe, any number of foes, you will siphon health from them to you. Minions siphon health and transfer it to you. Now, currently I'm not running any minions. I'll explain why I've gone for that one later, but if you wanted that extra bit of vampiricness, you would put in, for certain, the flesh golem, who will not only heal himself with this, but will heal you too every time he hits, part of the vampiric look that we're going for. Here, as long as you are not downed, allies near you do not bleed out if they are downed, and gain healing power based on your current health. Okay, this is more to do with the allies than it is for you. Not so essential, but you can do nothing about it if we're having the blood magic line. Okay, the skills I've chosen. This is a very arguable one. I'll show you what you can change it for. Even myself, I'm not too sure whether I want to keep this one or change it. This is has a reduced recharge on your dagger skills. Okay. If we're running dagger. I'm not running daggers. You might say, well, why are you running it? Well, it's for the 25% movement increase. When I am above 75% health, I will move around much, much quicker with this trait line. That's all it's good for, is that movement increase, and that movement increase is only when you're above 75%. So it's not the greatest choice. It is better than this. This is cast lesser well of blood when reviving an ally. Okay, not for you when reviving an ally. So although it does give you an initial self-heal, you need to have an ally to revive for it to work. And this is a solo build, so there's no point in having it. This is your other alternative, and it is a good option, I have to say, because it is more vampirism. Cast lesser signal of vampirism on your foe when you inflict bleeding on them that matches the threshold. Now you need 4 stacks of bleeding for this to activate. Now this blood mark gives you 2 stacks. So you would have to roll forward and then roll backwards, and then the enemy step in for that to trigger. Because so far none of these cause bleeding. If you look on your main greatsword here, none of these skills inflict bleeding either. This one doesn't inflict bleeding. This one doesn't inflict bleeding. He doesn't inflict bleeding. So your source of bleeding isn't great for this one. So none of these 3 are great for us. So I just can't remind you, you're going solo. So you can't rely on other people. If you're going in a team, there's no doubt about it. Switch to this one. You're probably going to pick up some bleeding and you'll be fine. I mean, if we were to swap over, you can see from these first 3 in the axe, there's still no bleeding. And then on the 2 of the warhorn, there's still no bleeding. Next, vampiric presence. This is essential. You and your nearby allies siphon health with attacks. Forget the nearby allies. This is solo, but it's nice if they were near. If you had some with you on a guild mission or in a dungeon. This effect increases while in Shroud. So when you enshroud, you're going to get extra vampiric health. So I have no backup on here, apart from your healing skill. I have no backup for the health because you're going vampiric, and it will keep your health life up a lot. Lastly, blood bank. Health gained over your maximum health is converted to barrier. Let me explain why that is good. Because you're doing vampirism, if your health gets back up to full, the rest of your vampirism is doing nothing. With this trait, the rest of your vampirism is building up a barrier, making it even harder for you to die. Now, barrier isn't health, but it's certainly supplemental to your health, and I really like it. Lastly is Reaper. 3 skills, of course, that you can't do anything about. Now, we talked about chilled earlier. Here, whenever you inflict fear, but we're not inflicting fear, we're not carrying a staff, then you also chill, so that's a bit dead in the water. But from all your other chills that you have got, chills last longer and do 15% more damage. So again, the skill I had in here originally was this one. This does a big chill, and that's very nice to have. You will do extra damage if you use that chill, but if you're counting on the vampirism to keep you alive, then you definitely want the minion in there instead. So what we've got as our choices is create a nova. Well, critical hits against chilled foes cause an explosion that chills adjacent foes. Now your third skill of the auto hit is a chill, so don't skip it, because with that chill you're going to do 15% extra damage. That chill is going to last 20% longer and do that extra damage. With this, when you crit against those chill, remember we're doing a power build, berserker build, so you will be critting very often. So critical hits against those chilled foes will cause an explosion that chills adjacent foes, so they're then going to be on the receiving end of another 15% damage as well. Very good indeed. Your next one is Soul Eater, striking foes within the range. The range is 300, and with your greatsword you'll be within 300. Same with when you're in your shroud. Deals increased damage, so 10% damage just by picking up your greatsword or by going into the shroud, and heals you for a portion of the damage dealt. As if it wasn't enough that you're running Vampiric all the time, this will heal you for a portion of the damage that you deal in and out of shroud. And lastly, Reaper's Onslaught, gain ferocity and quickness while in Reaper Shroud. So when you're in Reaper Shroud, you're going to gain 300 ferocity, get 3 seconds of quickness, and your skills and actions are faster as a result, and you'll get a reduced charge on life leap. So that's really good. Okay, with the weapon skills, do try and finish the auto chain if you can. This is a fantastic skill, this Gravedigger skill. If you're in a group, it only takes one of that group to be 50% or lower in its health, and you will be able to spam this over and over, no recharge. Very powerful. This is a surprisingly damaging skill that also inflicts vulnerability, which means everything else is going to increase damage and you get life force back on it. This one, growing column of shadows that damages and conditions foes every pulse. How nice while you're damaging them for them to be blinded and not be able to do damage back. This drags people in and will boost your life force at the same time. A great skill. For your defenses, for your healing, I've gone for the shout that will not only heal me, but also boost my life force for every additional foe that this hits, up to 5 around me. It's a very nice skill to have indeed. There are alternatives. The corruption one is quite good there, heal for every condition that's on you. And the well as well, but you must stay in the well. I've gone for this one. Let's skip that one, come back to it. These two wells together. Put that one down first. Decent damage, but blindness for every pulse at the same time. So while they're chilled, their movement speed reduced, their skill recharge reduced, being damaged, can't see, you're then applying that on top. Vulnerability, they're getting more damage by the extra damage you're putting there every pulse. This is vamping for you, healing you, killing them. Then this one is the one that you can swap out for whatever you like. Damage foes around you and chill them. So that chill means that you're going to be doing extra damage to them because they're chilled. Transfer conditions to each foe you strike. So whichever condition you've got, you will transfer one condition, but to each of the 5 that strikes you. Feel free to swap that out for anything else that you like. Literally anything else. It's quite superfluous to the build, to be honest. So anything else that you like better. The reason I've kept it in is because I like the extra 15% damage I'm getting on a chilled enemy. But again, feel free to swap that out for anything else you like. After all, this is a solo power vampiric build, and it's all about what's going to keep you going, you alive, whilst dishing out high damage. I hope this build has been helpful.